As sports history fans, we often reminisce about the legends. Willis Reed limping onto the NBA Finals court, Kurt Schilling's bloody sock, Kerry Strug's courageous dismount, and so many more. These moments often define sports history. But what about the countless injuries that did not become legends, or careers that were derailed due to inadequate care? That's where this episode's sponsor comes in. Introducing to you, ILP Sports Consultants, your trusted sports injury partner, available 24/7. Brian Maelli at ILP Sports Consultants has over 20 years of experience in the orthopedic and sports medicine industry, and he has worked with athletes across the gamut, from youth to amateurs, professionals, in almost every sport played in the United States of America, accommodating athletes at every stage of their career. This adaptability ensures that ILP services are perfectly tailored to your skill level, no matter where you are in your athletic journey. With ILP, you are in control. Choose the steps that matter most to you. Diagnosis, treatment plan, recovery, or the whole journey. ILP services are tailored to your unique needs. Rushing for care is a common pitfall, leading to future problems. ILP Sports Consultants helps you make the right decisions, ensuring that you receive timely and safe care. And here's a bonus. Brian hosts the Injured List podcast, sharing insights and athlete stories you won't want to miss. Whether you're a concerned parent or grandparent, or an athlete yourself seeking guidance, ILP Sports Consultants is your beacon of hope in sports injury management. Visit ilpsports.com today. That's the letters ilpsports.com. ILP Sports Consultants, where your well-being is the priority and your recovery is the mission. Choose ILP Sports Consultants for a healthier sports journey, helping you get back in the game the smart way.
Blog Talk Radio.
Tonight we'll go back in time to seasons past, when 22 men graced the rugged fields of yesterday, fighting for one more first down, one more yard gain, one final score, which would bring victory after 60 minutes of battle on the gridiron. Tonight we'll explore the world of Gridiron Greats. Welcome to Gridiron Greats Football History and Memorabilia on the Gridiron Greats Publishing and Broadcasting Network, in conjunction with Swick Enterprises. We're live from the Wallingford, Connecticut home of Gridiron Greats Magazine. And I'm Bob Swick, publisher and editor of Gridiron Greats Magazine, and I'll be your host for the show. Gridiron Greats is the only publication in America which focuses upon the history and memorabilia of the North American football game since its inception in 1869. We cover 150-plus years of football history and memorabilia. You can find us on the web at gridirongreatsmagazine.com. It is at this time I'd like to introduce my co-host. He's a senior contributing writer to Gridiron Greats Magazine, a football memorabilia historian, specializing in pre-World War II items, in particular Red Grange, and also Seattle Seahawk items, in particular Steve Largent. He hails from Portland, Oregon. Mr. Joe Squires. Joe, welcome to the show this evening.
Bob, always good to be here. Sunny and beautiful in Oregon right now, 85 degrees. Just a beautiful day out.
We had a break here at the compound in Wallingford, Connecticut. It's a nice, cool day. It's a high 70s, sun's out. Things look good. Got the windows open. Fresh air.
By the way,
Can't,
I don't know if I've ever told you this. I love that you call the Wallingford, Connecticut, the compound.
It's the compound. People who know us here in Wallingford know that 180 Long Hill Road is the Swick Bentley compound.
The compound. Good for Brenda. I'm sure she's happy with that.
We have the compound on Long Hill Road. I actually live right across the street from the Wallingford Country Club, which is one of the oldest golf country clubs in the state. And I don't play golf, as people know. However, we do go over there on occasion for the socialization, meaning their restaurant and bar. And we know most of the people over there, so it's a nice place to go. But I do not
go golfing quite a bit. But to say I play golf is a stretch. Well,
I don't do anything. The other day it was funny. We had a golf ball right in front of our mailbox. I don't know if somebody put it there or they shanked the shot so bad from the parking lot it bounced in front of the house here. I don't know. It was amazing. Hey, let's get right into it. And we're going to be off script for a couple of minutes. You picked up an incredible item, and I want you to tell our listeners about it.
Pretty happy. REA auction. So we had Brian Dwyer on as a guest about a year ago, I believe, the president of REA, Robert Edward Auctions. I've known Brian since he worked at SGC, at customer service. So to see Brian's meteoric rise to become president of REA is awesome, and I dig the guy. REA had a very rare circa 1910 Jim Thorpe photo of him standing there, just full uniform, cleats on, standing, just a type 1 photo of a very young, Jim Thorpe, Carlisle football photo, and just pretty amazing. And it's just every once in a while, probably 2-3 times a year, you just come across something like, wow, that's something I have to have. Auction ended Sunday night. The family and I took a vacation to Eastern Oregon, and it's one of those where you show up, Sunday afternoon, and I asked my wife Stacy to put the kids to bed so I can be managing, an auction closing, which is always fun to explain. But very happy. First overtime of REA on Sunday night. Just took down a type 1 photo of Jim Thorpe in 1910. Standing there. It was just a pretty amazing photo. Just it's always just puts a smile on your face to add something like that to your personal collection.
Yeah, it's an amazing pickup, and when I saw it, and I saw the previews, and I didn't get a chance to talk to you about it, but obviously I know you saw it and you knew about it. And I said, I can guarantee Joe's going to pick that up for his collection. That's too good. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's too good to pass up. I mean, that represents you and your collection.
Well, Bob, there's like 6 or 7 people that we've had as guests on the show that are all, into, just vintage football like that. It doesn't have to be Jim Thorpe. Mm-hmm. I mean, Jim Thorpe is vintage football, but, I mean, it could be anything. This photo is just vintage football. So there's at least 5 or 6 people I know who are after that, and it's kind of whatever you want to call it, an auction etiquette, not to reach out to someone and just hey, you going after this? You just certain things you just kind of let the chips fall where they may, and this is one of those where I expected it to go into about 3 overtimes, just keeping bid up, and as the clock was winding down in the first overtime, I was just stunned to see that I got it. So obviously very happy to add it to my collection. Just a very early photo of Jim Thorpe. I have another pretty early photo. It's an RPPC of Jim Thorpe, and it says James Thorpe with Geis. And I've never been able to figure out who Geis was. I've read books. But this is probably 1909. So I have an earlier RPPC of it, but just pretty cool. I love picking things like this up. So
it's an amazing piece of football history, and it went to a good home, and I was glad to see you picked it up because I thought of you immediately when I saw that. So,
and the cool thing about this hobby, the cool thing about our beloved hobby here is there's, even the people that I thought would be going after it, when it closed, I was like, hey, I'm happy to win this. Took it down. All the people who I thought would be out, like, hey, nice job, man. I saw this, I don't know. I dig our hobby, just how people are when it comes to things like that,
I think we have. I really believe over the past 10, 15 years we've come closer as a hobby. There's a lot more camaraderie, a lot more friendship than there's ever been, and it's nice. It's nice to help a fellow collector in his collection, and it's nice to see stuff like that go to good homes and go to good collections. And not that there's technically a bad collection, but you know what I'm saying. It's nice to see. Some of the hobby icon pieces are going into hobby icon collections. That's the way I feel about it, and it's good for the hobby. It's good. So when when it gets passed down the next time, how many years down the road or whatever, it's cool coming from the Joe Squires collection or whoever. It's nice to see. It's nice to see.
But you know what I mean? There's no jealousy. There's no damn it. I was really after that. It's complimentary. And that's what I dig.
Yeah. Yeah. So. I appreciate. I enjoy seeing that, and that was good. One other piece off script, because a couple of people had asked me during the week about it. The Canadian Football League, CFL, canceled their season for 2020. They asked my thoughts on it, and basically, because I do and I am in contact with the Canadian Football Alumni Association. They're big supporters of Gridiron Greats magazine. I kind of heard about this about 5-6 weeks ago, that it looked pretty serious that they were going to cancel. The thing with the CFL is a lot of their revenue is driven from ticket sales and from stadium, stadium sales, so on and so forth. And if you can't play in front of fans, they don't have a strong enough TV network that could carry them through to, support paying the players, so on and so forth. So they basically made the decision we're gonna cancel for the season, and we'll hope for the best, for 2021. Obviously, I got a feeling 2021 will be a heck of a lot more normal than 2020. But at the same time, I used an example, and this is what I mentioned to one of the people who asked me about, a media person, and I said, well, there's a local soccer team, professional soccer team here in Hartford, and I'm not sure what league they're in, but they're allowed 25% capacity at the outdoor field that they play in. And if you ever see a game, and they're on TV most of the time, and I watch it from time to time, you see, maybe 20 fans in one little section. Then you see it spread out, another 10, 12 feet, and there's another 20, 25 people in the next section, so on and so forth. Well, and I'm saying to myself, I don't know why the CFL couldn't do that, go every other row or go every third row, at least you would have something and, play the game. And that's it.
What you're saying is the CFL was social distancing before social distancing was a word.
Well, yeah, I mean, exactly, exactly, and it just really doesn't make sense why they didn't want to go with something like that. But then again, you got the same problem with the traveling. You get the same problem that a lot of things that are going on in baseball right now, and football is a contact sport. So I don't know. The Portland Trailblazers are here in Portland, and through my a business group I belong to, we were able to. About 2 years ago, the president of the Blazers did a little presentation for us. And, as business owners, we're like, okay, there's a top-line revenue. Where do the Blazers get their revenue from? And it was pretty interesting because he's like, all right, 1/3 of our revenue comes from TV contracts that the NBA has negotiated. And we're kind of agnostic to that because, TNT or whomever shows up and plays certain shows.
But, and then it goes into a pot and it's split amongst all of the teams, no matter, what your demographic. So
Right.
1/3 of our revenue comes from that. 1/3 of our revenue comes from ticket sales, season ticket holders, et cetera. And 1/3 of our revenue comes from merch. And that's food, beverage, T-shirt sales, et cetera. So, I mean, if during a time of COVID, if 2/3 of your revenue is off the table, ticket sales and merch, which is, jerseys, T-shirts, beer, wine, food sales, concessions. If 2/3 of your revenue is gone, you really have a hard time making that payroll. So, I mean, I totally get why seasons are actually canceled. I would imagine there's a force majeure, clause in a lot of these contracts where it's like, I don't know. It's, I'm glad to see our football season happen, but I also understand it's happening in a vacuum with no fans, with no merch, no ticket sales. So it's tough.
So I'm not surprised in a way what happened to them, and like I said, that was my feelings, just to throw it out. Do a 25% capacity or whatever, but that didn't go. That wasn't going to be bought, and that's it. So that then leads me into what we're going to talk about, and I'll just touch real briefly about the National, which was scheduled in December, which I said before, I can't see it happening, was officially canceled. So they'll be back in Chicago next year. And, I actually went to a local show here in Connecticut, in Orange, Connecticut, last Sunday. And it was pretty interesting because it was set up outside. There was plenty of room.
Oh, wow.
And it was good to see, the dealers. I knew virtually everybody there. And, everybody was just, talking. It was nice to see. And what I found interesting was the younger guys there, collectors, they had their gloves on. And, they had their full mask or face guards or whatever they're called. And the old-timers like myself, we're walking around. Yeah, we got our mask on. And, but we're touching stuff, and I came home, and I'm still living. So it's a good sign. So, it is what it is. And I was told that another local show is actually going to open, but the local health department in the town, it's in Plainville, Connecticut, which is upstate more. They want everybody's temperature checked as they walk in. Yep. And as Brenda always says to me, if you're sick, why would you want to go to a card show? And that's a good point. I mean, if you're not feeling well, you're not going to want to walk around, a 40 table show and try to buy something. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the temperature catch-all situation is, I guess, a way around it, and he is also separating the tables. So I guess every other table will be empty, so there's room or whatever, yada, yada, yada. So it'll be interesting to see. So again, let's see what happens in 2021 as far as the shows are concerned, but there's finally a little normalcy here locally.
Is anyone surprised that the December National in Atlantic City got canceled? I mean, probably not.
I really can't. I didn't even know why they would reschedule it for December. The time frame was horrific, and I couldn't see anything, especially in the tri-state area, changing. I mean, we're in a chronic lockdown here, and we really have no cases and few deaths right now. So it really is not making a lot of sense. But is what it is. So they canceled it in Chicago 2021, and it would have been nice to be in Atlantic City because I was planning on driving down there. It was bringing a lot more inventory than I would normally do in Chicago. In Chicago, basically, I'm just going to send the magazines out, and that's about it. And, I'm not worried about bringing anything, so on and so forth. But it'll be interesting to see how the shows play out.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, Atlantic City's tough to get to. It's a lot of distractions. We've talked about this before offline, where it's just a December 12th, national. I mean, you're right in the heart of Christmas parties,
right,
et cetera.
Right,
I mean, and
right.
I don't know about you, but December rolls around. I mean, we have our company Christmas party like the first or second week of December, just to avoid other people's Christmas parties.
Right.
I mean, it's tough.
It's a busy time of the year. You got the holidays, you're visiting people, you got activities, you got Christmas parties, so on and so forth. There's a lot going on from Thanksgiving to Christmas.
Yeah.
Actually, from Thanksgiving right up to New Year's. So
Absolutely.
it really doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it's what it is. So, anyways, it was canceled. I wanted to get that in and talk briefly about the CFL cancellation and the future of shows. Hopefully things are starting to get a little back to normal here. It's just so nice to go someplace and actually look at stuff again. And I ended up meeting longtime reader of Gridiron Greats, and we had a nice little trade there for some Flair in Action stickers he needed. I had one that he had for me. I picked up some Sunday Pop-Tart stickers, Sunday Kellogg stickers, and I picked up a handful of Sunday One Kellogg's football that I needed for a set. So it worked out good. It was nice. I had a nice time. It was nice to get out, and it's about a half-hour drive from here where I had to go, so it wasn't that bad. All right.
How far of a drive is it to Chicago from Wallingford? I mean, this is a West Coast guy asking.
I fly out. I don't drive. I have no desire to drive to Chicago. It would be about an 18-hour drive if I was normal, but I like stopping, so it'd probably take me 2 days to get out there. Those days of me driving 24 hours straight are long gone. That's all I got to say. So I prefer just getting on the plane, getting off the plane, take a little shuttle to the Hilton there, and just walk over, and it's fine. That's fine. That suits me well. And if I gotta get a ride anywhere, there's always taxis or Lyft or Uber or whatever, and it's fine with me. It's not a problem. So it's quicker to get on a plane and be there in 3 hours than to drive, 18. That's the way I look at stuff. So that's it. I'll be flying out there again. All right. Our guest is waiting. I don't want to hold him up any longer. I'd like to introduce our special guest tonight. He's 41 years old, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. His family bleeds scarlet and gray. Grandmother Faye's first game was her 21st birthday, which just so happened to be the 1950 snowball between Ohio State and Michigan. She went on to hold season tickets for Ohio State football, men, women's basketball, baseball, and other sports for many, many years before she passed away in 2014. Our guest, when he was a young boy, starting in elementary and middle school, his grandma used to take him to the Ohio State Football Appreciation Banquet, and that's where he really started collecting autographs. He stopped collecting for a while when he went off to college, found his wife, and as they settled down to raise a family, he had an idea to start collecting again. And he's focused on Ohio State football coaches, All-Americans, and national championship team signed footballs. Because sometimes the Heisman Trophy ceremony falls on his birthday, he's always been somewhat enamored with what he believes to be the greatest individual award in all sports.
Yeah.
He also collects Heisman autographs as well on index cards, Heisman cards, and programs. And I'd like to welcome to our show Mr. Matt Schwady. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bob. Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Matt. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's funny that Joe picks out the date December 12th when he's talking about the National, which just happens to be my birthday, which happens to sometimes fall on the Heisman Trophy ceremony night. So good job, Joe. That was a great transition.
Matt, my birthday is December 11th. So whenever people talk about, Christmas parties, birthday parties, my sister's is December 15th. So, I mean, yeah, December is a bad month for leaving to go to Atlantic City from the West Coast.
Yeah, unless you want to parlay that trip into a trip to the Downtown Athletic Club for the Heisman ceremony.
Nice.
True.
Could happen.
That's true. Hey, Matt, let's lead off and ask you, how did you become interested in football and collecting?
Well, actually, I come from a family big in sports. We were a big baseball family. Living in Columbus, you're halfway between the Cleveland Indians, you're halfway in between the Cincinnati Reds. So I've gone to hundreds and hundreds of those games growing up. obviously you know that baseball autograph collecting was always huge, starting way back in the early 20th century. And when I started getting old enough that understanding and collecting baseball cards, I started collecting autographs as well. When I would go to the parks and you stand by the dugout and get all these autographs, and I don't know when it actually became the transition to football, but because we were always a big baseball family, I would like to think that it was when my grandma would take me to the football appreciation banquets. That was usually an end of the year banquet that Ohio State would put on for their players. It was a nice plated dinner. Everybody was in their suit and tie. They would bring out those plates, and I would always be the first little kid done with his meal and sitting there waiting patiently until my grandma says, "You can go up and try to get autographs now." So, that was me. And I, like Bob had mentioned, I took some time off when I went off to college. Kind of was disheartened with everybody telling me my baseball cards weren't worth anything because they were so mass produced. So I stopped collecting cards. Just stopped out of the, got out of the sports hobby altogether. Went off. I played college baseball. Had a great time at the University of Dayton for 4 years. Settled down, found my wife. We started a family. I actually started collecting Yankees vintage autographs again. That lasted a few years. My first big purchase was a Babe Ruth autograph. And then I just kind of got disheartened from everybody telling me there were so much forgeries and fakes around the Yankees. So I started collecting Ohio State autographs because I had done that as a kid. I loved Ohio State football. And I also saw that these baseball collectors were getting old. And I was feeling like, everybody has this perception that the national pastime of baseball is swaying now towards football being the national pastime. So I thought at that time as an investment that it would be better served going to football collecting than baseball collecting. Little did I know that what I thought was going to be an investment opportunity turned into a big passion of mine, Ohio State football autograph collecting. And, from there, it's kind of taken off over the last 10 years.
Wow. I got a quick interjection here. Babe Ruth's granddaughters, one lived in Wallingford here and one lived in Durham. They both passed, but we were friends with one of his granddaughter's sons, so that Babe Ruth is his great-great-grandfather. And
that's pretty cool.
He talks about it a lot. He really doesn't know, he just knows what his mom told him about him. He only has a couple pieces of his memorabilia that they still hold in the family. And it's pretty interesting to talk to about it. But when you mentioned it, his name, he popped into my mind immediately. And it's pretty interesting.
When I was a sophomore at Dayton, we actually had a guy in the same class, graduating class, that was like an 85-year-old guy. He would come out and hang out and drink beers with us. And one time we were sitting on our porch, and he brought up how, as a little kid, he saw Babe Ruth play. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Wow.
Matt,
I'm not sure if you know. Matt, I'm not sure if you know, but I'm a huge Red Grange collector. And when I think of Ohio State football, I think of Red Grange's last college game in 1925 against Ohio, where Illinois won 14-9.
I'm sorry, you broke up there at the end. What'd you say?
I said I'm a big Red Grange from Illinois collector, and and back in the 20s, Ohio, powerhouse, and Red Grange's last football game, his last college football game, 1925 against Ohio, and it's just one of those ticket stubs and programs I've got probably half a dozen of, just because it's Grange's last college game, and and Illinois beat Ohio 14-9. Are you familiar with the game?
Yeah, actually, I had a consignor give me a piece. It's not in this current auction. We'll talk about my auction later, but there was a photo. Can't remember the size. It might be 20 by 24. I might be overestimating it, but it was like an aerial shot of that last game, and it had a little notation: Red Grange's last game.
Yeah. Just one of those historical games. I don't know. I had a chance to peruse your auction, obviously just chock full of amazing memorabilia. So, I mean, you touched a little bit on your, going to, dinners, et cetera, but what was your kickstart to collecting Ohio State, cards, memorabilia, et cetera?
We grew up, Columbus, obviously Ohio State's here, but our weekends centered around Saturdays being Ohio State Saturdays and Sundays were Cleveland Browns Sundays, and my entire family is just absolutely passionate about both of those. And I was always very high on autographs. I told you about collecting them in baseball growing up. It was just something different to me that if you had an autograph, it's like the person actually took the time to sign their name right there. Nowadays it looks like guys don't take that much time, but back then those guys took a lot of time and a lot of pride in signing their names, and that's just a piece to me that's like this is an encounter with that athlete. And going back to like the 1920s that you were talking about, just before that, Chick Harley was there at Ohio State, who is basically, in my mind, Ohio State's Babe Ruth. He's the guy that put Ohio State football on the map. And
without a doubt.
Just getting something signed by him is just absolutely priceless to any Ohio State collector.
Well, Chick Harley's story is tragic. Just what happened. I don't know. That's a tough one. Bob and I have interviewed somebody who's a huge Ohio fan before, and Chick Harley. I mean, I thought it was Scotty Otten, Captain, but I think I was mistaken because
it's Dan Elfast.
When you're pardon me?
It's Dan Elfast.
Oh, okay, yeah. And because when your auction came out, Matt, I pinged another fellow Ohio collector, and I said, "Is this your consignments?" And he's like, "Oh no, not quite." So it's Ohio fans they love their team. Ohio, Michigan. I mean, man, they're fervent. I'm an Oregon Duck fan. But my happiness for the week doesn't rise and fall on the fact that the Ducks win or lose. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of live and die in Ohio on what happens on the weekends in football, and even Friday nights in high school football.
Matt, you talked a little bit about autographs. Can you give us 6 of your top items in your collection and describe them to our audience?
Yeah, I know this is a football podcast, but obviously I've already talked about one item, and that was one of the first vintage autographs I ever got was a Babe Ruth autograph. I bought it from
that doesn't count.
The guy.
We'll allow it this time, Matt. It's Babe Ruth.
I bought it from the guy that got it as an 11-year-old boy. He told me the story about how his friend's dad worked at the airport in South Dakota, and that Babe Ruth was on his way to stopping in South Dakota and fueling up on his way out to California to speak at a talking, at an engagement. And he went on to say that there was, 50 or so little kids lining the fence getting Babe Ruth's autograph at the airport, and that there was something written in the newspaper about that stop. Within an hour of actually getting that letter of provenance and the actual autograph, I had contacted the South Dakota Library, and they had sent me a PDF of that article within an hour of reaching out to them back in, I think it was 47 or 48. So I thought that was pretty awesome. I've already talked about Chick Harley, too. I have a signed index card from Chick Harley. It's the only true index card I've seen. I've seen others that are cut about the same size as the 3x5. But this was signed later in life, belonged to a Chicago sports writer. Of course, he was in Danville in that veterans home. So I believe the Chicago Sports Writer went over to do a story on Chick and had him sign the index card. And that sports writer passed away a few years ago, and Leland's actually had it up for auction. So that's where I got that from.
Not a lot of Chick Harley autographs out there, I would imagine.
No, there's not. But the funny thing is, I've handled, I'd say probably there's about 10 to 12, and I've probably handled at least 75% at some point of those 12 autographs.
Wow.
Maybe even more than
cool.
that. So, yeah. And then the other thing that I got, there's a story to it that back in 2014, you mentioned my grandma passed away. It was actually 4 days after my daughter was born. My daughter was born in the same hospital when we were getting dispatched. My grandma got brought into the hospital by ambulance, and my mom was watching my two boys. So I have two older boys, and then the last one's a daughter. She was watching the two older boys, and she had called me and said, "Hey, they're bringing in Faisy into Riverside. Can you be down there when they bring her in there? So somebody's there." And I said, "Okay." I didn't think anything of it. She had been in and out of the hospital a few times, so I went down there, asked her how she's feeling, and the first time I actually felt like something might be wrong with her was she just looked at me and shrugged and said, "I don't know." Usually she'd play it off and say, "I'm good, I'm fine." You know, that's what the older people do. They're tough and they don't want you to worry at all. So I got to show her pictures of her new great granddaughter and said bye to her, blew her a kiss, and then went back upstairs. And that was the last time I had seen her, breathing and conscious. So that was right before the 2014 National. And also a story, so she actually was alive but not aware of what's going on, basically sleeping for the last 48 hours of her life. I remember sitting in her room those last 48 hours reading Gridiron Greats magazine, so there's a nice little plug for you guys.
All right.
But a couple weeks later was when the 2014 National was in Cleveland. And I was walking the floor with a buddy of mine, and he came up and he goes, "Hey, did you see the SDP auction?" And I said, "No, what's over there?" And he said, "There's a game-used ball from the 1942 Michigan game that's actually signed by the entire team, and which, of course, is the first national championship for Ohio State when Paul Brown was the head coach." And I said, "Wow, that's probably going to go out of my price range." This is, 6 years ago. I didn't have a lot of discretionary income to put into this hobby yet. And I said, I'll have to think about putting in a bid on it. I ended up contemplating back and forth whether or not I was going to put a bid in it. And that I think it was a Saturday or Sunday. I just felt like my grandma was talking to me and said, "You should go after this." I put in my max, went to bed, woke up the next morning, I won it for my max bid, which today is a steal for how much I won it for. But I just felt like grandma was talking to me that day and was making sure that I got that in my collection. So that's the story on that 1942 ball. Probably after that would be my Les Forbath gold pants. I don't know if you guys know anything about the gold pants tradition, but when Francis Schmidt took over the Ohio State program in 1934, Michigan was having their way with Ohio State. And Francis Schmidt spoke to the locker room and said, "Hey, guys, these guys are human. They put their pants on the same way we do, one leg at a time. Let's go out and beat these guys." And from that point forward, they teamed with a local jeweler, and any player or any staff member, any coach that partook or participated in a win over Michigan was awarded a pair of gold pants that they would be able to wear around their neck. So their Les Forbath won two gold pants, 1942, 1944. 44, of course, was his Heisman season, which also was the first Heisman for Ohio State. So I actually own his personal gold pants he was awarded after the 1944 Michigan game, which was his Heisman year.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's kind of out of my realm, though. Obviously, I'm an autograph collector, but I just felt with being a Heisman collector as well as an Ohio State collector, this was too good of a crossover piece to pass up on. So that's why I wanted it in my collection, why I went after it. Now, probably the holy grail of my Ohio State collection, it took me about 8 years to actually find it. And I was absolutely ecstatic about finding it and was on cloud nine forever. It actually happened, hard to believe. I think it actually happened this year, but in January. So this seems like a long, long, long time ago. It's a 1881 autograph album that belonged to a fellow named M.C. Lilly Jr., which is Mitchell Campbell Lilly Jr., who actually played football at Yale. Dad owned a huge company in Columbus in the early 20th century called M.C. Lilly and Company. They made uniforms for war, and they also got into the business of making uniforms for bands. But it was a really big company in Columbus back in that day. M.C. Lilly Jr. played at Yale. His older brother was Alex Lilly, who played at Princeton on the 1889 national championship team. He was Ohio State's first coach in 1890. And I got M.C. Lilly Jr.'s personal autograph album that was signed by Alex Lilly, M.C. Lilly Jr., and Snake Ames, who played at Princeton in 1889 also and went on to coach at Purdue. And it's just one of a kind. I've never seen an Alex Lilly autograph before. I'm not in public hands. I've seen them in the university archives, but of course they're not coming out of the university archives. So to find my holy grail, being an Ohio State coach's autograph collector, put me on cloud nine for a long, long time. My sixth item, I'm going to have some breaking news on this podcast for you guys. I haven't shared this publicly with anybody yet. Probably the holy grail of any Heisman collector. I have a 1939 Heisman program signed by Niall Kennick.
Wow.
It came
That's actually
from
really cool.
Wow.
it came from a family member of an employee at the downtown athletic club back in those days. So it's rock solid, ironclad. Haven't had it authenticated, but I'm very comfortable with it. I got other pieces from that same collection. But just having a Niall Kennick autograph is something I always wanted. I had the chance to bid on a GPC that was in Golden Auctions, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It went rather cheap, but I always said if I'm going to invest money in a Niall Kennick, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to wait for that 1939 Heisman program to come up. And it finally came up, and I was able to add it to my collection. So those are my top 6 pieces.
Wow. That's amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's got to be hard to be a collector and also have an auction. I mean, how do you discern between that? I've always been curious about that, because you're a collector, but you see stuff come across as consignment for your auction. I mean, it's got to be tough to categorize those.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It is hard. There's a couple things. I guess a couple stories with that. So the good thing is with this auction is many times I get to see pieces first. And there was one instance where a lady had consigned her grandpa's collection, and inside his collection was a letter on Ohio State letterhead from the Ohio State head coach at the time, John Wilsey, who also coached Chick Harley. Coach from 1913 to 1929, was the first coach to beat Michigan. Luckily, she had a full of those letters, so there was actually one in there that I liked, and I asked her, hey, instead of putting this in the auction, would you mind just selling it outright to me? I'd like to have it for my personal collection. And she was willing. So there's that part to it where you can, I guess, ask. I don't know how that's looked upon from the rest of the hobby, but certainly I think as a collector, as somebody that runs the auction, I'd like to add to my collection too, just because I'm working just as hard to find these pieces as other people that are trying to find pieces for their collection. I feel like I'm helping Ohio State collectors out because I know how much time I've put into collecting and trying to find that one or two special items. It's hard. It's almost an annual thing. You're lucky to add maybe 2 or 3 pieces to your collection. So I wanted to have one auction. I wanted to have one auction site where Ohio State collectors could go to and not have to spend all this time trying to find 1 or 2 pieces a year.
That's the thing with any. That's the thing with any advanced collector, and especially you're specializing in a very specialized area. So it's a good thing, in a way, because again, I'm sure you got very dedicated people who are bidding in the auctions who are looking for those specific things, and they'll come up and they're willing to wait for it. So that's fine. I can understand that logic with no problem. So.
Yeah, like you said, it's a very niche market, and you mentioned before how passionate Ohio State fans are and collectors. I don't know if there's another school that could have their own auction like this. Personally, maybe I'm being biased. But I just know how passionate Ohio State fans are. There's a cruise every year for the last, I think it's 12 years, called the Buckeye Cruise for Cancer, where they raise money for cancer awareness. I know the actual owner of that cruise, and they put it on annually, and they sell out the entire ship just to Ohio State fans. And I had talked with her, and she's like, other schools have tried to do this. They can't even sell half a ship. She's like, I don't think any other school could do this. That's how I feel about my auction site. I don't know if any other school could have their own auction site like this. So, yeah. So that's why I kind of had this idea to get this together, put this together. It's been kind of a dream of mine for about 6 years, and it finally came to fruition this past January was our first auction.
Matt, quick question, just a quick question here. First game of the season, I'm an Oregon Duck fan. The first game of the season was Ohio at Autzen Stadium against the mighty Oregon Ducks. Who do you think would have won that game? Obviously that game got canceled, but who do you think would have won that game?
Ohio State would have went undefeated this year if there was a football season.
Okay, that's not correct.
Did that answer your question?
It was a question, and that answer was not correct. I think the Ducks would have won 54-3, and that 3 would have come in a last-second field goal. Just one of those sloppy points.
Yeah, Oregon would have went for 2 because they couldn't go for 3, just like Woody said, right?
We do have pretty crappy field goal kickers. We're renowned for that, but yeah. Autzen is a tough place to play a game. Ohio's a powerhouse, but we were looking good this year. I think Ohio got lucky. That game got canceled.
I don't know about that one. I really honestly think there's been talk that they might go off on their own and have a 6-team Big Ten schedule this year where it's home and home with all the 5 other teams. So we're still holding out hope in Columbus that there might be a football season, but not optimistic at this point. But I really think with Justin Fields back for a second year, he was invited to the Downtown Athletic Club last year for the Heisman ceremony in his first year. So I think he could have led him to a national championship again this year.
Yeah. Going back to what you said, I agree. There's certain powerhouse schools. I mean, and it's Ohio, Michigan. I mean, I don't know. And Ohio is definitely one of them. So I mean, putting together an auction like this, you've got to have some great stories about just other passionate collectors who are happy to to consign things to you. What can you share some of those with us?
Yeah. So there's obviously you got ticket collectors, you got program collectors, you got autograph collectors. So it's always funny because you have to have duplicates though if you're gonna let go of a piece. So it's fun to see which collectors have doubles of things that they're willing to put into an auction. But as well as, you got the older collectors that are kind of thinning out their collection, as they start thinking about retirement, thinking about moving down in house or whatever it might be. Kind of go back to the last question as well. I had an older gentleman consign some items, and he had an original stadium chair box seat from when the stadium opened in 1922, and he wanted a $50 opening bid. I said, okay, that's fine. I turned to my wife and when I got it in my possession, I said, this is probably the coolest item. It's not a high dollar item, but this is probably the coolest item I have in this coming auction, at least in my mind. And she's like, what is it? And I said, well, it's a box seat from when the stadium opened back in 1922, the house that Harley built.
Butts that have been in this seat.
Yeah, exactly. Just think about the people that have sat in that seat and what they witnessed when they were sitting in that seat. That's how I look at it. And I said, man, this is an awesome piece, and I just can't wait to see what it goes for. I was like, you know what? I should probably try to buy this from the guy outright. One of those situations where, like I talked about, I'd like to have it in my collection, but then I thought about it and I was like, I should offer this in the auction. It's not a piece that I focus on. It's not an autograph. It's not a Heisman. I'll just put it in the auction. How about the first day it was up to $750 after a $50 opening bid?
Wow.
So yeah, that was the highlight of the day one in the auction.
I know you might get this question every once in a while. Where did the Sloopy come from that you named your auctions after? Sorry, Bob. I keep coming up with questions.
No, go ahead.
It's funny that you asked that because there are even Ohio State fans that will call me on the phone. Hey, is this Sloppy Auctions? I'm like, this is Sloopy Auctions. Oh, that makes a lot more sense. So between the third and the fourth quarter of every Ohio State game, and actually every Cleveland Browns game too. I don't know about the Bengals because I don't go to their games. But in between the third and the fourth quarter, the Ohio State marching band will play the official rock and roll song of the state of Ohio, and that is "Hang On Sloopy." If you're familiar with that song, if not, you can go on YouTube and go listen to it. But they've been playing that forever. The marching band has been playing that. It's on their playlist at every event and concert they ever do. "Hang On Sloopy" is a fan favorite, and I think even the university has sells their tickets on hangonsloopy.com. But that's how big it is in the state of Ohio.
Pretty cool.
Is, that song,
that's pretty
"Hang
cool.
On Sloopy."
The Ducks between third and fourth do "You Make Me Wanna Shout" by Otis Day.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, Animal House was filmed at U of O campus, and then that's a pretty popular song from the movie, so that's why.
Yeah, and of course you got Wisconsin. They do jump around traditions at every school, and "Hang On Sloopy" just happens to be Ohio State, and that's how I came up with Sloopy Auction.
That's neat. Matt, are you looking for anything in particular for your collection from your want list?
I'm always looking, Bob. Obviously, I told you the story about Alex Lilly, the autograph album I got. He was the first head coach at Ohio State. I'm a big Ohio – that's actually how I started collecting Ohio State vintage, was trying to get every single head coach ever to coach at Ohio State. Quick story on that. I had got a autograph of Sam Williman, who took over for John Wilsey in 1934. 1929 to 1933. 34 was Francis Schmidt. But 29 to 33, Sam Williman was head coach. He got let go. Ended up going to Case Western or Western Reserve. I can't remember which one it was back then. And passed away in 1935. So his autograph was pretty rare. And
Wow.
If you go look at Ohio State history, they were a revolving door of head coaches before John Wilsey came to Ohio State in 1913. I think they had from 1890 to 1913, maybe 12 or 13 different coaches. And I remember picking up this Williman autograph from another Ohio State collector. And I told him what I was going after, and he said, good luck. It's going to be really hard to find all those guys before 1913, if you can find any at all. That's what he said to me. So I took that kind of as a personal mission to try to find those, dozen or so guys that coached before John Wilsey in 1913. And started pecking away a little bit at a time at it. And with the addition of Alex Lilly in January, I'm actually down to one coach that ever coached at Ohio State. And his name is Charles Avery Hickey. He was the head coach in 1896. It says for the full season, but he was only there for a half a season. And then he played. He was actually the captain of Williams College in Massachusetts in 1895. Head coach at Ohio State 1896, and then went off to do some law work in Binghamton, New York. So I guess since I got my holy grail of Alex Lilly earlier this January, one coach left, I guess Charles Avery Hickey now becomes my holy grail that I'm after, that I'm looking for.
Wow.
So if there's any Williams College collectors out there to have a 1895 signed piece and Avery Hickey is on there, I'd be interested in talking to you. And obviously being a Heisman collector, and I'm always looking for signed Heisman programs by that year's winner. The older, the better.
Wow.
1939 now is my oldest one. I'm missing quite a few guys from Notre Dame, 1950s, and then anything before 39.
Wow. Those are heavy duty wantless, to say the least.
Yeah, but I'd like to think they're out there though, and I can peck away at them like I did with all the other things that I've been able to add to my collection over the years.
Totally. But, Matt, we've touched on it a little bit, but tell us a little bit about your upcoming auction, Sloopy. I mean, I perused it when it first came out. Like I said, just an impressive, impressive array of lots that you have coming on. It's pretty cool. But yeah, tell us about some of the items you have coming up.
Yeah, sure. So SloopyAuctions.com. This is our second auction. It was supposed to be a kickoff auction leading up to the season kickoff. It was supposed to end a week before Ohio State kicked off their season, but obviously with Big Ten canceling their season, it's just now an auction that's not kicking off to anything other than being called kickoff auction. The highlight, the first lot in there is it's one sheet of paper folded in half, written on all four folds, handwritten by Chick Harley, who we've touched on numerous times, the first Ohio State three-time All-American, an inaugural Hall of Famer in college football. Handwritten, all four folds, to Lynn St. John in 1919 when he was off doing his service to the country and talking about how things were going there. And obviously he wanted to try to get back for his senior year, which, as we know in history, he did end up coming back and putting a stamp on Ohio State's football program by beating Michigan for the first time in school history in 1919. And obviously that's become a huge rivalry, and Ohio State's had their way with Michigan lately, but it all started with that Chick Harley win at Michigan and Ann Arbor in 1919 at Ferry Field. There's some other great pieces. I try to pride myself on putting something in there for every collector of Ohio State, whether it's, they want to find something inexpensive but rare. Obviously we got the rarity items like this Chick Harley, just pieces that you don't see every day. but something for everybody's budget. Another one of the high-dollar items in there is a 2014 National Championship ring where they beat the Oregon Ducks. The Oregon Ducks, I said, in the National Championship game.
Too soon. Too soon, man.
Come on. It's been 5 years. You're over that by now. Marcus Mariota got a Heisman Trophy, so you're good. But we do have
that Seahawks lost the 2005 Super Bowl.
Matt, we're gonna wrap things up because I'm down to 90 seconds. In 10 seconds or less, any advice for beginning collectors?
Absolutely. Stay focused. There's a lot of times where you can get pulled in other directions. Stay focused on your collection. Stay focused on your budget. Stay within your means. That's my advice for anybody starting.
Spot on, Matt. That's perfect.
Perfect, Matt. Perfect. Thanks for being on. I'm down to less than 60 seconds. And again, anybody checking out, it's sloopyauctions.com for your latest auction. Again, thanks for being on the show. Go on for a couple more hours, but we're limited time now. So thanks for being on.
I appreciate the time you guys did give me.
Good luck.
So thanks for having me on, Bob and Joe. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Yeah. Good luck with your auction, man.
Seconds.
Thanks for being on.
Thank you.
10 seconds, handing off to you. What'd you pick up on tonight's show?
What I go talk about some passionate fans, Ohio, and everyone. I have probably half a dozen friends who are adamant Ohio fans, and all of them are the same. So pretty cool to see an auction come up just for them. I keep waiting for my Steve Largent only auction house to open, but I guess I'll be patient.
All right, we're out of time. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with another show. Take care.
Ba-ba-ba.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network.
Each week, the official Football Learning Academy podcast will take you deep into the history of pro football through interviews with players, coaches, or administrators in the NFL, as well as interviews with Pro Football Hall of Fame selectors, authors, and historians. You'll learn how the game evolved and important moments that shaped the sport into what it is today. And don't miss the Pro Football History Nugget of the Week. Listen to the official Football Learning Academy podcast on the Sports History Network.
How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast.